you and glorify you. Have your way among us in Jesus' name. Gosh, our gospel reading today. The disciples are in quite a state, aren't they? We have just to think about them in that room, gathered together, locking the doors. And when I think about them in this locked away for fear of the leaders, kind of trying to regather, I think back to what they've just been through. And they've done these 3 years with Jesus. They've walked with him, they've watched him, they've listened to his teaching, they've seen him move in power, they've seen him serve people, heal people, bring hope to people. They've listened to confusing stories and grappled with concepts and the ways that he's opened the scriptures to them. And they've done all of this journey and really done their best with him and put all of their hope and trust in him. They have believed that he is the Messiah. And they've expected him to somehow show them that God will rescue them from the things that oppress them, that God will somehow rescue them from the Roman rule, from the hardships of life, from the sicknesses and the diseases and the things that are troubling them and oppressing them, and the things that they are afraid of. And they've listened to and tried to grapple as Jesus has led them towards the time of the cross. And then I wonder, it's interesting to think through how they have done that time with him, because they've put all their hope in him, and then they've watched to their kind of own understanding. It looks like Rome has conquered God. It looks like their hopes have been dashed, in a sense, because they haven't yet been kind of filled with the Spirit or filled with this ability to understand all these things. And so all of them have walked through this time of confusion, this time of trauma, of seeing the one that they have hoped in and the one that they've followed, the one that they've changed their lives for, be arrested and crushed and die. And some of them have reacted in different ways, and they've fled and they've denied him and they've just run in fear. Some of them have stood and watched his mother and John and others, but for them, the overwhelm, for their hearts, for their minds, for their souls, as they watch him die, as they watch him be humiliated by these oppressors that they're hoping for rescue from. And so all of the disciples have walked through an incredibly crazy time, a time of overwhelm and destruction and loss and trauma. And they've come to this resurrection day, and something is happening. The tomb is empty. And Mary Magdalene has said that Jesus is risen. John and Peter have run, and they've heard, they've seen, and there's something happening. But as we all know, the human body, the human mind and heart doesn't quickly leap from trauma to complete peace or complete understanding. So they're in this space of turmoil as human beings who love Jesus. And they're in this room, and it's incredible how Jesus comes right into their midst. They're in a time of darkness, and inside themselves, even a time of darkness, and a time of wanting to hope, wanting to regather, wanting to believe, wanting to be those faithful followers, but really struggling. And almost potentially, supernaturally, Jesus comes through the locked doors and into their midst. He's not afraid of how they've shut themselves away. And he brings them these words, peace be with you. And those words are not just his hope for them. It's not, I just wish you might have peace, but they're an impartation. Have peace. I am here. Have peace. I'm alive here now with you. Have my peace. And they're words that were spoken over him at his birth. So they mean something even more than that to the disciples, because at his birth, the angels declared, peace be among those with whom God is pleased. So these words to the disciples are also an affirmation of God's pleasure. While they're in the midst of confusion and feeling like they've utterly failed, God is saying to them, I'm still pleased with you. And not only that, but Jesus continues on, and with where he left off, really. And while they're feeling like, here's this impossible task, we don't understand, we're grappling with what is happening, he goes on from peace to, and I've been sent, and I'm sending you. So we're just continuing with this mission. We're continuing, and you might feel like you're finished and you've failed and you've written yourself off, but I'm sending you. And it's just incredible his kindness to them. He's really not fazed. Jesus is not fazed by their turmoil, their fear, their failures. He's there, and he's ready to lead them into the next stage of what God has planned all along. And he breathes on them. And even that is this beautiful picture of this new life for them, this new hope. Thinking back to when God breathed life into Adam. And here Jesus is the new Adam, who has brought life, who has stood and not sinned, who has been tempted and crushed and has been that perfect sacrifice and has paid the price, has conquered death and conquered sin, and is able to bring this new life to them. And so he breathes this new life into them in that space and says to them, receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive anyone their sins, they'll be forgiven. And there's again that sense that the disciples are going to continue in this mission that Jesus invited them into years ago. And he is going to make them capable. He is going to work through them by his Spirit to bring forgiveness to many people. So they have this, still the same goal and the same hope of how to be faithful to God. But it's in God's power. It's in his strength. And even Thomas, and sometimes I can get a bit critical of Thomas. You know, he's made fun of a little bit. But he has, in his staunch personality, he's not only kind of in turmoil or fear, but he has become staunchly in this kind of state of unbelief. He's not just saying, well, I hope that Jesus is alive, or I hope what I'm hearing is true, or I'm trying to figure it out. He's saying, unless I see these things, I am not going to believe. And he's in this kind of staunch state in his turmoil. But again, Jesus is not fazed. He's not saying to Thomas, well, you just need to work on your attitude a little bit, and you just need to take some steps towards believing, and then I'll meet you and I'll help you, come to a better place of faithfulness. No, Jesus just, again, comes right into where Thomas is, right to where he is, and says, okay, you're in unbelief. Here, come and see. Come and see. I will show you that I am alive, that I am here. I will help you believe. And his kindness, again, is incredible. The kindness of Jesus, the grace of Jesus, the love of Jesus to meet every single disciple where they're at and bring them what they need to begin this time of moving forwards, of trusting in him, and of waiting for his power to make them able. And even Thomas, in that moment, he doesn't even need to put his hand in Jesus' side. He simply sees Jesus and hears his voice and gives this incredible exclamation of, you are God, you are Lord. And earlier in the verse as well, the disciples rejoice because when Jesus does come to where they're at, there's a resounding in their soul and in their spirit. He is here with us. He is alive here with us. And our passage finishes with John, the disciple John, who's written this book, encouraging us that this book was written so that, like Jesus said, those who have not seen might believe. Us, that we might hear these things, that we might not just believe in him, but have life in his name. And it's such an encouragement for us today, because I don't know about you, but I know in myself that whenever life does something crazy, whenever kind of life gets turned upside down at times, or whenever we fail and we really disappoint ourselves or others, whenever we feel like we've disappointed God, or we are expecting God to come through in some way for us, provision or protection or understanding or the removal of pain or hardship, and he doesn't come through in the way we expect. We can come to those places, and it's not for lack of loving Jesus or desiring to follow him, but we come to those places where something in us hides, where part of our soul is kind of brought to the surface, that this turmoil, this part of us that desperately wants to trust in Jesus, but needs to go through kind of a process of, and there's ways that we react. There's emotion. There's a whole range of emotions. There's ways that our minds grapple and sometimes are so confused. There's ways that we react practically or relationally, where we build ourselves up or protect ourselves or kind of hide away our insecurity or our feeling of failure or shame. And it's not that we're not generally living as Christians or following Jesus or gathering or praying, but there's something going on. There's a journey going on in us where we're grappling with what is God doing? And how do I follow? And often in those spaces, there's grief or fear or doubt or unbelief. We each respond in different ways. We're different types of people. And there's ways where we need to meet with Jesus afresh. And we're needing his work in us, and we're needing his power for what he's asking of us ahead, afresh. And we might have met with him in the past. We might have had times, great times of being empowered for certain tasks, or times of feeling successful or faithful, but this is a lifelong journey, isn't it? And there's these seasons and these times where things come up and they're not in our control, and we hide, and we grapple, and we wrestle, and we need Jesus. We need his help. And the beautiful thing is that he is not fazed by any of these times for each of us. And he's not fazed, he's not scared of the ways that we hide. He's not hindered by the locked doors, or the grief, or the turmoil, or the wrestle, or the range of emotions. He comes right into the midst of where we are, and he meets us where we're at. And he comes to say, I'm here with you, and I'm alive. And he brings us that same message. Peace be with you. Have my peace. God is still pleased with you. God is not somehow scared of your feeling of failure or your feeling of lack. In fact, it's great sometimes that we recognize that we can't do this, that it's impossible for me to accomplish what God asks of me without his presence every day, and his help and his power. And so Jesus comes with that message to each of us. And in the same way as in this season, there's that time and this story of Jesus coming to us in those spaces. And then in this season, we're remembering this 50 days leading to Pentecost, and this time of waiting for an empowering. It can be a great encouragement to us, because these journeys in our soul, these journeys in our lives that are the place of God's work in us, they take months sometimes, they take years sometimes. And sometimes those wrestles, or the pain, or the confusion, or the ways that we're seeking God and trying to follow him, they don't just leave. We're not kind of alleviated from that immediately. And so we have to figure out how to follow him through those journeys until there is some kind of completion to that work in us, until there is a sense of a fresh empowering, or a fresh enabling for us to participate in his mission, for us to be us for him in our lives. And so it's beautiful the way that in our passage today, and that for us in our journeys, Jesus does continually come in these times and bring his breath, bring his fresh life to us, bring his peace to us, bring his Holy Spirit to us, and work through us, regardless of somehow what internally and externally life feels like. And there's a sense in which, as we seek Jesus daily, and as we are vulnerable and honest about our need for him, as we get on our knees, or sometimes our bodies don't allow us to get on our knees. So just as our heart gets on its knees before Him, to say daily, I trust you, Jesus, and I surrender to you. And to meditate on the things that He brings, even when the feelings are overwhelming or life is hard. And just to hold on to His words of comfort, to hold on to His words of affirmation and peace, to hold on to the way in which He comes to bring provision and to show us that He's here and He's alive with us. And as we gather regularly and make that intention to encourage one another and to worship Him, He does do this work in us. We might not see the empowering immediately, or feel the successes, or feel the huge encouragement, or see fruit in quick ways. But there's a sense of enduring and of waiting on Him while we seek Him and meet with Him and lean into Him and allow Him to do these journeys in us that are mysterious often. And it's often just in those simple practices of praying, of reading the scriptures, of getting on our knees or gathering together and encouraging one another, that He ends up doing over time an incredible work in us, a healing work, a work of opening up our minds to understand afresh, opening up our hearts to see and to witness to how He is alive and who He is and who we are for Him. And even during these times when whatever it is we're feeling, whatever it is we're grappling with, we will always have something we can offer. And it's not a time to stop. But for the disciples, even though they were in that waiting, and He says to them, wait in Luke, at the end of Luke, wait in the city until you've been clothed with power from on high. But it wasn't waiting and don't say anything to anyone. It was not going out and doing the big mission. And so they're still doing life in the city. They're still connecting with people. They still have something to offer. It's just they have this limited capacity while they're doing this journey, while they're seeking Him, while He's doing this work in them. And for us, there is always some small part we have to offer to those around us, to those within our reach. And we don't have to be off on some big venture or some big mission, but we will always have something to offer each day from our heart, from our life with God, from the way that Jesus is with us, and even from the way that we might be wrestling, from the honesty of our wrestle. It's amazing the opportunities that sometimes come along that are incredible to journey alongside someone seeking faith or wrestling with faith when I'm honest about my vulnerability or my wrestle. And there's always some encouragement or something we have to offer as a witness or as a sharing of God's love with others. And there is that waiting. There is that waiting is a beautiful thing in this season as we remember the waiting for Pentecost. Because it is only by God's power that we are capable of bringing Him glory, that we are capable of sharing His love and bringing His life and His hope to others. And so that waiting with expectation is a precious thing. And so I just encourage you today, as I've been encouraged by God myself in preparing for this, that just as we continue to seek Him, as we continue to gather, as we continue to just offer our small part, as we continue to wait with expectation for the work that He's doing in us and for the power that we need, His presence and power that we need to do what He asks of us. That He does more than what we realize. And He uses us in these seasons in more incredible ways than what we might hope. So, be encouraged today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily. Thank you.